Hey, what's going on? We're live. This is Joe McCall, Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. How's it going? Glad you guys are here. We got a special podcast today. We are continuing our series called Deals Gone Bad, and we have a local St. Louisan who is a Cardinals fan in the house today on this podcast. His name is David O. I would try to pronounce his last name, but I'm sorry I'd butcher it. Ounanian. I can see him nodding. No. Yeah, no. Yeah, he's nodding. Okay, I got it. Anyway, guys, we're going to be talking about Deals Gone Bad. This is number 11. And on this podcast series, you've heard me say it before. Smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from the mistakes of others. And sometimes the best lesson that we can get when it comes to real estate investing are mistakes. Are bad deals. We all have them. And if you don't have one yet, you've not done enough deals yet. You've not been in the business long enough. But what I so appreciate about these guests who have been on the show, excuse me, my throat's sore, is these are guys and ladies that have picked themselves up. They have rebounded. They didn't let defeat hold them down. They didn't let setbacks slow them down. They decided to persevere, to not quit, to not give up. And I respect so much more the people that have rebounded than people who have tried and failed and never picked themselves back up again. There's that famous, and maybe while David is looking, I'll find that famous quote by Winston Churchill. You know, it's not the ones who are in the arena who've never tasted I'll come up with that quote later. But yeah, they've rebounded and they've come back up. Well, cool. All right. So as we've been going through this series, I've been collecting notes. Right now, they're in a mind map. Pretty soon, they'll be in a PDF of all of the lessons learned from each of these episodes. And if you want to get the mind map or the notes, go to joemccall.com/bad, joemccall.com/bad, or just text the word bad to 313131, and we'll send you all of the notes. And this is, I'm probably going to turn this into a book or something because these lessons are so good of things that went wrong, but should have been better, could have been prevented, and things like that. All right. So was there something else? Oh yeah. Hey, listen, we are broadcasting this live right now on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope. Believe it or not, Periscope's still around. And if I could find a way to get it on LinkedIn and Instagram, I would. But if you're watching this right now, and there's a bunch of you on, if you're watching this right now on Facebook and YouTube, say hi, type something in the comments right now. Say hello, tell us where you're from. Just give us a shout out. And as we go through this, if you have questions for David or me, type them in the comments in YouTube and Facebook, and we can pop them up here and we can ask them. So I want this to be a live, interactive type of podcast to answer your questions, get feedback from you all. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, so good. I think we should bring Dave on. Enough of me talking. How you doing, David?
What's up, Joe? How's it going, man? I'm so excited to be on. Long-time listener, first-time caller here.
That's weird, man. That's an honor. That's quite an honor, actually, to have somebody say that to me on my podcast. But glad you're here, man. You're in St. Louis, and I love your hat. Yeah.
Go Cards.
Go Cards. They didn't have the best year, but they made it into the playoffs. And the Cubs didn't win. So I mean, what else could you ask for? No.
We'll take it.
So, man, welcome to the show, and talk a little bit real quick about your history in real estate. How did you get started in the business?
Yeah, man. So like so many of us, I was raised to go to school and get a job working for somebody else. And so I went to college. I studied computer science, came out, got a software engineering job at a huge corporation, which I worked really hard for 10 years and ended up staying there for 12 years. But during that journey, I hit a freaking wall. And the first 10 years of my career, I was getting promotion after promotion after promotion. And every time I got a raise, I did what everybody else was doing. And we went out and bought nicer things, right? So my wife and I bought a bigger house. We bought new vehicles. We bought a lake house. We bought a boat. We bought a wave runner. And before I knew it, my paycheck was coming in on one day, and the very next day, all of it was being spent to pay for all these bills, all these lifestyle upgrades. And that's when I realized I was absolutely trapped in the corporate rat race. And at 30 years old, the only retirement savings I had was a 401k, was basically guaranteeing me that I was going to be working till I was 59 and a half.
Isn't that crazy? That 401k, which is supposed to give you freedom, actually enslaves you to your job, because people think that the only way they can retire is slaving at their job for another 40, 50 years.
Yep.
before eventually, maybe, hopefully, if the market cooperates, they can retire from that money. I'm not saying that 401ks are bad, but sometimes it has an opposite effect of holding people back. But anyway, that's another story, another topic. What were you
Absolutely.
working in? What was your field?
I was a software engineer, so at a
Okay.
big IT company, yeah, here in St. Louis. And I remember the day very vividly when I got bit by the real estate investment bug. I was huge into fantasy sports and betting on football and all that stuff. So the only podcast I had listened to at the time was completely, fantasy football, fantasy guru stuff,
There's
trying
a
to
lot of
predict
them
who
too.
would win the football game this Sunday. And I would always lose. But I would keep coming back. And I remember sitting in my cubicle that day, and it was like November, December. So it was getting dark at 4:30 in the afternoon. And so I had just realized that I had spent my entire day, all of the daylight hours of that day, sitting in a cubicle. And I was like, this is miserable. And so I decided to open up my podcast app, and I was like, well, maybe there's some way you can invest in real estate. I had actually got my real estate agent license on the side a few years before, but
What
never
year
really.
was this?
This was about 4 years ago, exactly. So I decided to search on podcasts and wonder if there's any podcasts on real estate investing. And I found yours, several others, and there's just like tons of information out there. And I just started just taking this stuff on like a fire hose. I listened to hundreds and hundreds of podcast episodes, read tons of books, and just started becoming obsessed with learning how to invest in real estate and learning how to break free of this corporate rat race.
I'm sorry, man. You're talking about fantasy football. What happened to Tom Brady last week?
I don't know,
Are
but
you
I saw
kidding
your
me?
Facebook post and I thought he was turning it around down there.
But Tom Brady, okay, this is a funny story, totally off topic. And last week I got 4.85 points from Tom Brady. Those of you who don't care about fantasy football or anything, normally a quarterback gets you at least 30 points, 25 points. Like the worst quarterbacks give you 25 points. Okay. I got from Tom Brady, I'm looking at it right now, 4.8 points. He passed for less than 100 yards. 4.45. I got 4.45 points. He passed for, I can't see it right now. Anyway, there it is. He passed for 200 yards, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. Oh my gosh. And he completed only 58% of his passes. All right. So, the funny thing about this was I posted something on my Facebook, the day of the game, Monday morning, I think, right? Because he played Monday night.
Yeah.
And it looked like a pro Trump post, right? And you had to click on the find out or more button to open expand. And when you open expand the text of my Facebook comment or my post, it was really talking about Tom Brady and what a turnaround he's making in Tampa Bay and what a great quarterback he is, even though you may hate him and all that. Well, anyway, it was that evening after I posted that he had like the worst game of his career, one of the lowest points ever in fantasy football. He's one of the worst, was the worst quarterback of the entire season that week. Completely bombed with Antonio Brown on his team,
Yeah.
who didn't do squat either. So anyway, totally not related, but I thought it was kind of funny.
That was funny. I copied and pasted that post that you made and sent it to my friends, and they sent me back a picture of the scoreboard, and I was like, oh crap. He's
Was
not
the
doing too
wrong
well today.
day to post that. Anyway, all right. So 4 years ago, you got started in real estate. I know I just lost half of everybody, and now everybody's mad at me. But
That's all right.
all right.
Don't
So
turn it back.
you got interested in real estate. You got a real estate license, right?
Yeah. So that goes back a few years before this. So when I bought my first house, my realtor sucked so bad that I had to learn how to do everything myself. So
Wow.
on that transaction, I decided I'm going to go get my license so that way I can help my friends and family, avoid this crisis
Wow.
of having a terrible real estate agent. But I never really thought I'd have a career. It was just kind of a side gig for fun. Never thought about investing at all at this point. So just kind of had it.
Okay. All right. And then what kind of real estate did you start trying to do for on the investing side of things?
Yeah, so what I got really excited about was the concept of doing the BRRRR method. So that's buy, rehab, rent, and refinance, and then repeat that process. So being able to rinse and wash that same
Hmm.
capital and build a large rental portfolio with very little money out of your own pocket. So I was really, really excited about that. I did a ton of research. Like I said, hundreds of podcasts, dozens of books. And basically I
Well,
spent
let's
the
let's
better, yeah,
let's just clarify what the BRRRR strategy is just a little bit more. You
yeah,
buy it, you rehab it, you rent it, you refinance, and you redo. Is that it?
you repeat. Yep.
You repeat.
Do the same process over and over
And
again.
so the
So
idea is you find a cheap property that needs work. You buy it with somebody else's money, hard money lending maybe,
yeah,
borrow from a private lender. Give for 3 to 4 months. That gives you time to fix it up, rent it out, and then refinance it so you get all your money back. And now you have a new loan in place, and it
yep,
should cash flow, a couple $100 a month net cash flow.
yep,
Um, and you got to make sure you're covering for all of your expenses and stuff like that. And
exactly.
then you get your money back. So then you can go do it again. Right. And it's called the
Yeah.
BRRRR strategy, BRRRR. It's really popular in Bigger Pockets circles, which is an awesome podcast, an awesome website. You guys should go check it out, biggerpockets.com. But I'm assuming that's kind of where you got inspired by the BRRRR strategy, right?
Right. Yeah. So
Okay.
you didn't need a ton of money to
Yeah.
invest in real estate. You could do this method and be able to scale up really as fast as you can refinance these properties. So just to give you an example of some numbers, like if you're going to buy a property for $50,000, put $25,000 into renovating it. At that point, you want to hope that it's going to appraise for $100,000 so that you can refinance at about 75% of loan to value, pull out the
Yeah.
75 that you're into it for, and then go on and do that again and again and again. And after that refinance with your mortgage payment, with all the expenses, we're still net cash flowing, a couple $100 a month.
Yeah. It's a great strategy. And we have some mutual friends that do it a lot in St. Louis. All right. So your bad deal though was one of these, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. So
was it your first deal ever?
this is my very first deal.
Oh man,
So,
this is painful already.
baptism by fire, right?
Yeah.
So I spent the better part of a year just in like analysis paralysis mode, like just researching as much as I could possibly do. And of course, I didn't know anybody that was investing in real estate. None of my family, none of my friends, and so there's very little support around me, basically. And originally my wife was very much against taking some leap of faith into the real estate market and all this. But then, after week after week after week, I'd be coming home from work and listening to these podcasts on the way home and the way there, and telling her, "Oh, look at this great idea! We can do this, we can do that, we can do that." And so every night of her hearing this over months and months and months, she was finally like, "You need to go out and buy your first deal. Like, stop talking about it. It's time to take some action." And so, I went ahead and pulled the trigger, and that's when this nightmare started.
Oh,
This was a property that I found on Craigslist. It was listed by a wholesaler. And then only later did I find out from the tax records that it had been wholesaled to the wholesaler. So I was like at the other end of a hot potato game, and landed on me, and I
so
got stuck with it.
yeah. So it's kind of like a daisy chain, right? So
Yeah,
one guy gets it under contract to buy it. Somebody else comes to him and says, "Hey, I'll bring you a buyer and we'll split the fee," or something like that. Or he adds his assignment fee on top. And so then by the time that it comes to the end buyer, there's 2 or 3 guys in the middle that all get a little bit, keeps on bumping the price up. All right. So where was this property located, David?
yeah. So this was kind of near the airport in an area called St. Anne.
Okay.
So
Not
it
a
was a
bad
little
area.
house.
It's a kind of a class C area,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I was like very careful to try to stay away from any war zones, any D class areas, and this kind of passed the test as like this is kind of working class area, pretty clean street. Everything looked good. The purchase price was $45,000. So like that literally that example that I just gave you about the BRRRR, like this property was lining up to be exactly like that. What happened was, so basically the wholesaler had said it'd take about $20,000 to make this house rent ready. And so I had never estimated a rehab before. I actually bought a book on estimating rehabs. It's behind me. I read that book. And basically, I knew just enough to be dangerous, right? I didn't have any real world experience, nobody to help me, nobody mentor or coach me on this process. And so I was just taking what I was learning from podcasts and books and online courses and trying to implement this stuff on my own. And so I walked the property. I said, you know what? I'm going to pad this a little bit. I'm going to be ultra conservative. I'm going to say it's going to take about 25 grand to rehab this property, get it rent ready.
And the wholesaler said it was going to need about what?
20K.
20K.
So
and you said, I'm going to pad it to 25.
Yeah. And I asked him all kinds of questions too. Like he actually sent me like kitchens that he had remodeled and bids from contractors. And he was like really selling me on the fact that this was only going to cost $20,000 to renovate.
Is this a wholesaler that we both know?
You might know him. I don't think I've ever talked.
Okay.
I won't say his name. But I don't think I've ever talked to him after that first deal. He kind of radio silenced on me. Yeah, I padded it. I said, I'm going to pad this thing 25%, right? I'm going from 20 to 25 and thought I was going to be safe with it. Well, at the end of the day, it ended up being a $50,000 rehab just to get rid of it. And so this thing came crashing down real quick. And I remember very vividly, like the day that I closed on the house, I was very excited. My wife and I were on the front porch talking about what colors we were going to paint the house and all this stuff and kind of celebrating our win. And the mailman comes up and the mailman says, "You didn't just buy this house, did you?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he goes, "You know what happened here?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, the son killed himself right in this room right over here." And I'm like, "Oh my God. Like what in the world did I get into?" And so that was the start of like this just downward spiral.
Well, okay. Property. To be fair though, and this sounds crass, but people die all the time inside of houses.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't the big deal, but
no, it's not something that you actually even have to disclose to anybody. So it really, really isn't that big of a deal. It's just emotionally at the time we were on this high of got our first property. Okay. And all of a sudden, like here comes the beginning of bad news, for the next 6 months.
So you bought this thing, just looking at my numbers and my notes here, you bought it for 45.
Yeah.
You thought it would need about 25 grand in rehab. And
yep.
What did you think it was going to be worth fixed up?
I thought it'd be worth about 100,000.
Okay. So just similar to what we were actually talking about, which would give you enough equity if it all worked out that you could refinance it and get your money. Yeah. Did you use your own money to buy it or did you get hard money?
Yeah. So this was one of the biggest mistake or one of the mistakes I made. So I used all of my own money. So my wife and I had like literally our life savings. Every single dollar of it got sucked into this property. And by the end of it, like I didn't know how I was going to pay for something if something else was going to go wrong. So that's when it got really, really stressful, put a ton of stress on my marriage. It was just a really bad place because nobody knew what was going to be the outcome of this thing. And literally could be setting me back financially a decade or more when I'm trying to get to freedom and not be stuck in this job anymore.
Wow. Okay. So, writing these notes down here. Why, talk about the repairs that needed to be done then. How did you know?
Yeah.
Like 25 wasn't going to be enough.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, the surprises just started coming up. So I actually got this property inspected. So I had been a normal real estate agent. So I knew how to write contracts. I knew how to open escrow at the title company. I knew how to hire an inspector to inspect the property. So I felt pretty good about all this stuff. The problem was when we inspected the property, it didn't have any power. The water wasn't on. So there wasn't a ton of stuff we could actually look at. And this house was really dark on the inside. So really had to have like a flashlight to see anything, even on the upstairs during a sunny day. But some of the problems that came up, probably the worst of it was the foundation. And so it had a finished basement. And I remember the day that I was down in the basement, the contractors took down the paneling And like literally they're like, hey man, there's all kinds of like water and cracks behind this paneling in the basement. You got to do something about it. So I came over there, had a foundation guy come with me, and he was giving me the worst news on the planet that day. He's like, this whole wall has to be redone. Like it's going to cost $25,000 because we've got to take a forklift, lift up the house, take this wall out, and build a whole new brand new wall. And when he left that day, I usually not a very emotional guy. I mean, I cried when my dog died, but that day I bawled, man. I was down on my knees just thinking like, what in the world did I do with this property? And I called a buddy of mine and I was just telling him like the bad news. And he's like, dude, you need to get 3 bids. You get 3 bids. And so I got another bid, and that bid was only for $10,000 to fix the wall. And then I got a third bid, and that bid was only $5,000 to fix this wall. So then, I was like, okay, I can stomach a $5,000 on this foundation wall and be able to give a nice warranty to my end buyer, because at that point it had turned into, we just got to sell this and try to get as much of our money back. This isn't going to be a BRRRR deal. This isn't going to be a rental that I'm holding on to. This is going to be a fix and flip, basically.
Yeah.
Some of the other problems that we found, like no water when we inspected it. So of course, all of the plumbing in the house is completely shot.
Well, let me back to the foundations there.
Yeah.
Do you think if you would have had a better inspector, or could any inspector been able to see the problems with the foundation walls?
On this property, you couldn't, because they had finished the basement. And so unless somebody was going to take the paneling down off the wall, you would have never known what was behind there. And it was below grade on the outside of the house, so you couldn't
But the
see
paneling wasn't wet.
It wasn't wet. Yeah.
Okay. So pretty much though, I mean, you got it fixed for $5,000.
Yeah. So they put in some I-beams, epoxied all the cracks, and basically made it good.
Which isn't really in the big thing. I know it's a big deal for you on your first deal, but in a
yeah,
normal house renovation in St. Louis, it's not that big of a deal to have to fix foundations. And that's
sure.
a good lesson to learn there, people, because people many times, things like termites, bad foundations, mold, they'd scare people, right? But that shouldn't scare you as an investor if you've got it budgeted for those kinds of repairs, because those are easy things to fix. Foundations are actually, it's real common. Concrete cracks. Number one, you got to understand that, right? And a lot of basements leak water. It's not that big of a deal. And when you can get it fixed, you can usually, if you got a good reputable contractor that does it, get a lifetime warranty that's transferable. And a lot of times it does not hurt, depending on how bad the problem is, but it doesn't hurt the sale of the house, the resale of it, when you can fix things like bad foundations, termites, or mold, because those things are easy to fix. But you weren't expecting it, David. And that first guy who told you it was going to be outrageous.
Yeah.
It's always, I'm glad you got some other bids on that. All right, cool.
Right. Yeah. So more problems that came up. The whole like sewer lateral was shot. So I foregone a sewer camera inspection, which I will never do again after that. So that's when they take a camera and they run it through the sewer pipe that goes underneath the foundation of the house, all the way out under the yard into the street where it ties into the sewer main. They take that camera to make sure that pipe is intact and your plumbing is good exiting the house. So on this particular property, all of it was clay pipe. All of it was collapsed. There was going to be no flowing of sewage through this sewer lateral. And to replace this thing, you've got to jack up the entire basement floor. It's literally, the pipe is 3 to 4 feet under your basement floor. So they got to dig it up, lay new pipe, get rid of all the debris, pour new concrete back down there. And so that was another major surprise.
Which is another common problem with houses that old in this part of St. Louis, right? But like, how much did it cost to fix that?
That was like 8,000 or 9,000, and that was after getting a couple bids as well. So that was a big, big surprise.
8,000 or 9,000. How much would a sewer lateral inspection have cost?
$150.
All right.
And I thought I was smart saving $150.
I got it. I get it. Yeah. All right. So
Never,
then
never
what
do that.
else?
Yeah. So never do that again. Of course, my inspector knew that, we needed to raise the service wire for the electric. But then when we turned the power on, we also needed a new panel. We needed a lot of work done with the outlets. A lot of them weren't grounded. A lot of them weren't connected properly. So I had a lot of electric work, basically all new electric work going into this property too, which was another surprise. We had when we sold the property, the buyer had their inspector call out some problems with the roof, so we had to do some patching, some repairing on the roof, and then tuck pointing on the chimney, which I didn't realize was going to be a very expensive repair. Tuck pointing seems to be more expensive than you would think. It could cost a couple $1,000s to fix a chimney and tuck point it.
Did the
And then
inspector miss that as well, or did he just say it wasn't as big of a deal as?
he kind of called it out, and I didn't really think it was going to be a big deal. I didn't even think I didn't even fix it. So I, obviously thought it was going to pass the buyer's, sniff test as well. But yeah, I was wrong on that. And then one of the other big surprises was on the occupancy inspection. So when you're selling a property or when you're renting it out, you have to get, here in St. Louis, you have to get the local municipality to inspect it to provide clear occupancy. And, they can usually call out, some smaller things like, hey, attach this handrail to the stairwell this way, or put some smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in the property. Well, little did I know that they had just passed a new code there that said any house that is sold has to have a paved driveway. And so this one had a gravel driveway.
Oh my gosh.
So there's every other house on the street had a gravel driveway, mind you. So this was not going through my mind at all that we're going to have to pour a bunch of concrete here. And so, this is a big driveway too. Like this is 2 cars width. And so I decide that we're going to try to get away with as little driveway pouring as possible. So we went to the city with our plans for the driveway, and it was like a single car just going to basically the front of the house. And it was like the week after Christmas when we were doing this. So like the regular building permit approver or inspector wasn't in the office. So it was like somebody else was signing off for him. And he just stamped his approval on this driveway. So we ended up getting out of it with like a $5,000 driveway when in reality, it probably could have cost like 12 or 15.
Oh
So
my
then by
gosh.
the time we had this driveway poured, basically made the other half of the gravel driveway, we put landscaping rock on it and like planted bushes in there to make it look like it's just landscaping over here. It's not a parking area. And so by the time we had all this done, the regular building inspector was back in the office, back from vacation. And so he comes out and he says, "Oh no, this is not passing at all, buddy." He goes, "This is a driveway over here. This needs concrete." And he goes, "You only poured the driveway to the front of the building line. Our code requires you to pour the driveway to the back of the building line." And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." And so luckily I just fought this tooth and nail. And I was like, here's the document that you guys approved and stamped these plans. And finally, after a lot of back and forth, I ended up getting, awarded on a past occupancy inspector without having to do that. But that was another part that was like extremely stressful, going back and forth with them on.
So how, where were you getting the money to do the rehab from? Was it your own savings? Still
Yeah,
had
it's my own personal savings. Like literally every dollar went into this house.
so anything else?
No, no.
Okay.
Luckily we got to the end with like a couple grand to spare, and it was like, please, fingers crossed, please no more, please don't. I don't know how we would have done it. We would have had to start racking up credit card bills, and it would have got real, real ugly.
All right. So at the end of the day, how much are you in on it? You bought it for 45.
Yeah, so 45, 50K rehab, and then we've got, holding costs, we've got realtor commissions. I was well over, I want to say 100,000 into this property, maybe around 104, 105. And then It sat on the market for about 2 months. I had to offer a buyer's agent bonus to be able to get this thing sold. And
You were
so we
selling it
finally got,
in January, sounds like, right?
yeah, it got listed in January, and then it went under contract and sold in March, April timeframe.
What did you sell it for?
The sale price was 96.5, but I had to do a lot of repairs that included in that 50. And then I had to give them some credits as well. So a few thousand in credits. So all in all, it was like a loss of $5,000 to $10,000. Which
A little bit
looking
more than
back
that.
on
I
it
mean,
now,
if you were all in
yeah.
it for 105 and you sold it for 96 and you still had commissions and all of that, you lost 15,000.
Well, the 106 is with the commissions.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The 105 is with the commissions. Yeah. And that's with like an agent bonus too. I think I had to throw in like a $1,500 bonus commission for that buying agent to get somebody to write on this thing.
So this is your first deal. Did you stay
It's my
married
first.
through it?
Still married, yes. Yeah,
Good.
we survived it, which was a big test.
Good for you. Good for you. All right, let's talk about some lessons learned.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently if you had to do this all over again?
Yeah, so I would have got some help from somebody that knew how to invest in real estate. I was an agent myself, but I had no investment experience. So an investor friendly agent would have been so helpful to be like, hey, point out all these things that I just didn't see at the time. Or have like a mentor or a coach or somebody just come with me to the property to look at it before I wrote a contract or look at it during the due diligence period. That would have saved me a ton of heartache and stress during this whole thing.
Find an investor friendly agent and mentor or coach. Good. What
Yep.
else would you have done different?
I wouldn't have used all of my own money. So I would have got a loan. And I would have had my own money there in case of an emergency. So if I got the loan for the 25K rehab, then when that rehab goes double and gets up to 50K, I can tap into my emergency funds.
Do you think if you would have gotten a hard money loan, they would have lent the money on the deal?
I think they would have. It's they're a lot of them will just drive by the property. A lot of them don't even go in the property. They're just they'll look at some pictures and they probably would have bought the 20K, rehab the number that the wholesaler was throwing out there. So on paper and looking at the pictures, I mean, this thing made sense to most people, I think.
Okay. All right. So you wouldn't have used your own money. What else? What else would you have done different?
Yeah, so wouldn't use my own money. So now, so every property that I buy, I have a rehab calculator, rehab estimator that I use. And so this has made my life so much easier because it's got literally every line item of a possible repair that could come up in the house. And so now for every property that I buy, I'm going line by line. Does it need this? Does it need this? Does it need this? And so rarely do I have these huge surprises that I had on this house. When you're walking around in a house and you're just jotting down a couple of things that you think need to be done, you miss things all the time, especially if you're there with, the seller or somebody else is with you. You get distracted. You don't see everything. So I take pictures and now I'm going through my checklist, making sure every single line item could be covered with my repair estimator.
Where did you get that repair estimator?
I
Did you
built
create
it in Excel. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I built it in Excel.
You did? Wow.
And I'd be willing to give it to your listeners, Joe.
You
if
would?
you want me
Do you have a website for people can get it, or can I include it in
Yeah.
my notes?
Yeah, well, I'll drop the link to you. It's myagentinvestor.com/cashflow.
myagentinvestor.com/cashflow.
Yep.
myagentinvestor.com/cashflow. Nice. And that's where people can get the rehab. I'm writing this down. The rehab estimator.
Yeah, the coolest thing in there is the rehab estimator. It's basic. You'll get an Excel file. It's got all of my calculators in there actually. So
Nice.
from fix and flips, buy and holds, the BRRRR method, the repair estimator. So everything's in one spreadsheet. You can use it on your phone, do it on your laptop. It's real easy to use and helps me evaluate and analyze every deal that I buy.
Nice. And this is a calculator you built yourself.
Yep.
Cool. All right. What other lessons learned? Would you have done different?
Man, so a couple of them we've already talked about.
Get multiple bids.
Multiple bids.
Yep,
I learned that lesson. And then
always do a sewer lateral inspection.
Yep, get your sewer lateral inspected with a camera. I learned how to work with contractors on this deal. So one thing that you'll find out is it's hard to find a good contractor. Everybody's looking for these cheap contractors that do high quality work. It's almost like they don't even exist. To give you an idea of the process I had to go through to find somebody to rehab this property is I probably called like 15 to 20 different contractors, like called them, told them about the house, tried to set up appointment to meet me there. And I think I set 10 appointments to meet contractors at this property. And I think like only 7 of them or so showed up to meet me at the property when they said they were going to show up to meet me at the property. And then out of that 7, I only got bids from 3 of them. But two of those bids that came back, one was really high. The 2 were decent bids. So I was able to find 2 good contractors out of this deal. So I used one of them on that house, and then I used the next one on the next property I ended up purchasing.
Well, so you did purchase another property after this. You didn't quit and give up?
Yeah, that's actually probably the biggest lesson out of this. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So listening to podcasts like yours and so many others, you hear these stories of like people failing and then getting themselves back up, and it's really inspiring. And so one of the things is like everybody's afraid that they're going to lose when they do a real estate investment deal, right? You're afraid, you're fearful. I tended to leverage that fear. So I was actually more afraid of not succeeding in real estate than I was afraid of failing in that one particular deal. Because if I didn't succeed in real estate, I was going to have to go back to the cubicle for the next 30 years of my life, which seemed like a life sentence to me. And so I was more scared of having to go back to that than it was like failing in this deal or failing in the next deal. So I just made a commitment that I was going to figure it out. And I even told my wife at one point during this process, I was like, if we like go homeless and I'm like on the side of the highway with a cardboard sign, my sign's still going to say, "We buy houses." Like I am committed to buying houses and getting out of this mess. I know real estate is the vehicle. I just got to get better at it.
I found the quote. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Bam.
That's awesome, man.
You'll have to read that slower to get the full.
Yeah, where'd you get that from?
It's a famous quote that I've seen for a long, long time, and I just Googled it. If you Google Roosevelt, the man in the arena,
that's cool.
The man in the arena. Cool. So then, what are you doing now these days, David? You're a realtor. You're doing your own deals, but you also help people find deals too.
Yeah, I'm an agent and an investor. So on the investment side, we're a pretty small operation. It's just my wife and I and an assistant. So we got about 14, 15 rental properties. My assistant does all the property management. She's basically like the property runner for us. And my wife designs all of the rehabs, manages the contractors, all that stuff. And then on the agent side, we have a team called My Agent Investor, and we only focus on helping investors. So I believe the new financial advisors are actually expert real estate agents that can give you advice on purchasing investment real estate. So most realtors will sell you a liability, like the house that you're living in. We're going to sell you an asset that puts money in your bank account every single month. And so that's how we look at it. We have all the tools at our disposal that an investor does. So we really know how to speak and get our clients the investment properties that they're looking for.
And your website is myagentinvestor.com. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, that's our website. You can follow me on social media at Agent David O. Agent David O.
Agent David O. On Instagram, is that what you said? Or Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook.
Thanks. My mind map just crashed on me.
Uh-oh.
So, okay, I just accidentally deleted 591 selected items, but it confirmed and asked me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I click cancel. So I didn't lose it.
Oh, thank God.
Okay, so again on Facebook or Instagram,
yeah.
How do people find you again there?
Agent David O.
Agent David O. I'm going to write this down on the banner here. Agent David O. at. And look at that. Is that it?
Okay. Nice.
Agent David O. And your website is
myagentinvestor.com. And if you want the calculators, myagentinvestor.com/cashflow.
All right. How does that look right there? myagentinvestor.com/cashflow.
Perfect.
That's it. David, really good, man. So you've picked yourself back up. Your wife is a trooper. Give her a nice big hug for us. Pat her on the back. Tell her she's a trooper. But you stuck with it. You didn't quit. You went back at it, and now you have on your own 14 properties that you've done the BRRRR strategy on. Is that right? You've bought it, rented it, rehabbed it.
Yeah. Actually, we're getting ready. We kind of maxed out where we're at on the BRRRR strategy. Now we're going back and paying off properties, which is really cool to be able to own something free and clear and just get all the more cash flow from it.
Yeah. So your properties are cash flowing. Is that right? Your properties are cash flowing and you're paying them off?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So when I got to 10 units, each unit was cash flowing about $300 a month after all of your expenses and with 75% leverage on it, financing. So that enabled me to leave my corporate job, just having that income coming in. And most people think, $3,000 a month isn't that much, but a lot of that is tax free because we're depreciating properties.
Yeah.
And so that 3,000, which might be, what is the math? 36,000 a year really feels like $60,000 or $70,000 at the end of the day.
Oh, that's true. And then you manage your own properties as well. So you save some money there.
Yep.
Nice. Good for you, man. And you're paying them off. And so pretty soon you'll have them free and clear.
Yep. Yeah. That's the goal, is pay them off and continue to do a few BRRRRs, but have a majority of the portfolio paid off.
Good for you, David. That's awesome. And I'm looking at your spreadsheets here. That looks really cool. Your website, myagentinvestor.com. We help busy professionals invest in real estate. I love that. And your calculators here, you have the rental cash flow calculator, the BRRRR cash flow calculator, rehab estimator, and the fix and flip calculator. And they can get that for free at myagentinvestor.com/cashflow. Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Anything else you want to say? Let me just ask you this. What was your biggest lesson learned that you want to share with people listening to this? Maybe somebody who's new, maybe somebody's in the middle of a bad deal right now. Like, what would you say to people?
Dude, just don't give up. Just commit, man. You got to commit. You got to go all out and you got to say, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to figure out how to do it. And it's through the perseverance and the persistence that will, you'll get to that end goal. So just don't give up.
Good, man. Well said. David, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, don't forget we gave you a lot of notes and links and things like that. If you want to get the notes and everything, go to joemccall.com/bad or text the word bad to 313131. You can get all of David's spreadsheets and stuff like that, calculators at myagentinvestor.com/cashflow. Thanks for being on the show, David. We'll see you later, man.
See ya. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.